But look, you don't need to agree with his opinions. It's a free country. You have the right to talk back to him or anybody else. But when you try to stifle scientific progress because you hate a candidate, you're not the good guys. Maybe it should be you that we're launching into space.
The battle between Elon Musk and the California Coastal Commission promises to be more tense as Democrats learn of SpaceX's weakness, its significant reliance on Vandenberg Space Base. This would put more hurdles in the way of SpaceX's ambitious launch plans at this place. So it's time to find a new dreamland, the Florida coast, where local authorities have been opening their doors for them. So what will SpaceX gain and lose by shifting to this area? Find out everything in today's episode. Have you ever wondered why the California Coastal Commission could blatantly cite the political reason for rejecting SpaceX's plan to launch more rockets off the Central California coast without fear? In my opinion, one of the reasons is that they are clearly aware of Vandenberg Space Base's role in SpaceX's rocket launch plans. It's not coincidental that Vandenberg offers an ideal location for launches, because only this location can launch satellites to a polar orbit without launching over population centers, the eastern seaboard, or foreign countries, Cuba and South America. Of course, SpaceX can do this from Cape Canaveral, but by then, launches tend to require much more booster energy. In contrast, it is much easier to do from Vandenberg. In addition, the company also has lucrative contracts with the Space Force to launch the military missions at that place. For example, the Space Force had sought to increase the number of launches of SpaceX's flagship Falcon 9 rocket from 36 to 50 per year out of California. By exploiting these loopholes, California bureaucrats can force their enemies to change to their liking. However, SpaceX CEO Elon Musk is not willing to give in. In mid-October, he sued the California Commission in federal court, accusing panel members of political bias in blocking the space venture company. So far, it's unclear how everything will end. But I believe that this is only Musk's short-term step because no one knows exactly what the California Commission will do next. For that reason, it's important to have a contingency plan in place, meaning SpaceX can come up with adding Florida, the long-standing capital of U.S. rocket launches, to the list of ideal launch sites. Maybe you don't know that Elon Musk has had a strong rapport with the head of the state of Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis, in recent years, particularly as DeSantis announced his presidential candidacy in a special congressional election held June 14, 2022, in Texas. Elon Musk was asked on X if he'd picked a horse for president in 2024. DeSantis, Musk responded. In November of the same year, Musk tweeted that he hoped the next president would be someone sensible and centrist. Asked if he would support DeSantis, and he replied that he would. Additionally, Musk's endorsement is also shown in the financial aspect. In the aftermath of Hurricane Ian, Musk's company, SpaceX, provided 120 Starlink satellites to help restore internet service in affected areas of southwest Florida. DeSantis publicly acknowledged this partnership during a press conference, highlighting their collaborative efforts in disaster relief.
We're working with Elon Musk, and he's got the Starlink satellite, so he's...
Palm Beach County-based political analyst Brian Crowley, who covered Florida and national politics for more than 3 decades, shared his own opinion about this matter. There are 2 ways of looking at this relationship. One is that it's a purely political relationship, and the other is that it's a business relationship. Frankly, it might be a combination of both. Thanks to these positive moves of Elon Musk, Governor Ron DeSantis holds SpaceX and Musk in high regard, consistently creating favorable conditions for the company's growth in Florida, even introducing legislation to further boost SpaceX's strength in the state. The Florida legislature, under DeSantis's leadership, passed a bill that protects private spaceflight companies like SpaceX from lawsuits related to crew injuries or fatalities during flights. This legislative move is seen as a supportive gesture towards Musk's ventures in the state. On Musk's side, he has spoken positively about Florida's business climate. SpaceX has a sizable workforce on the Space Coast, with rocket manufacturing and launching facilities in Cocoa and Cape Canaveral. In 2021, he said he'd spoken to DeSantis about alleviating traffic around Miami through the use of tunnels built by his boring company. The local government's support has turned Florida into a place where top aerospace companies find everything they need to turn their cutting-edge ideas into reality. In Florida, Aerospace companies have a footing in the new space economy, or any aerospace market, with direct access to established infrastructure, a skilled workforce, and an environment geared for innovation. Only Florida offers an unmatched experience, exclusive financial tools, and a prime location over other regions. Geographically, while launching from Florida tends to require much more booster energy, the place still stands out in terms of other significant advantages. Located along the east coast of the United States, the launch site in Florida, Cape Canaveral Air Force Station is a military base, utilized by both the Navy and Air Force for defense and strategic operations. It has played a key role in the development of the space program and missile testing in the United States. When this area was being looked at as a potential site, the fact that there was already an infrastructure in place, roads specifically, made Cape Canaveral an easy choice to move the launch program to. Another reason why Cape Canaveral was appealing was the close proximity to the equator, as it lies 28 degrees latitude above. This is very important. As the Earth rotates on its axis, it creates positive kinetic energy. The closer to the equator, the greater the kinetic energy is, which means a rocket launching from Cape Canaveral has to use 0.3% less energy. From a fuel efficiency and expense perspective, with the amount of energy needed to launch an object, that 0.3% savings goes a long way. Cape Canaveral was also very close to the Atlantic Ocean. Since the Earth rotates eastward, not only would the object being launched get a nice boost from the Earth's spin, but the object would also have the advantage of flying over the ocean, minimizing the risk of having any debris dropping or exploding near people. Rockets can be safely launched to the east over the open waters of the Atlantic Ocean. If there is an issue with the rocket after liftoff, spaceflight operators can safely put it down in the Atlantic Ocean without endangering the public. In fact, SpaceX has taken advantage of this by sending a floating platform out in the Atlantic Ocean, where the first stage of its Falcon 9 rockets can land after sending its payload into space. Anyway, Musk seems determined to launch the rocket from California despite political hurdles. This led to the $730 million contract between the U.S. Space Force and SpaceX being awarded shortly after Elon filed the lawsuit against the California Commission. The contract includes at least 9 national security missions from California's Vandenberg Space Force Base. Musk's determination also received big support from powerful officials. First and foremost, California Governor Gavin Newsom, who has had a long-standing feud with Elon Musk in the past, but recently sided with Elon Musk, saying, "I'm with Elon." Elon Musk and SpaceX get even more support from Washington. Congressman Vince Fong wrote his own letter to the California Coastal Commission, CCC. "I have grave concerns over their decision, with commissioners citing personal animus to justify what should have been a non-political decision. As a member of Congress, I believe that government decisions should be made in a fair and impartial manner, without regard to political views. In all my years in public service, I have never heard of a commission discussing politics as the basis for official action. This seems to be an egregious use of political discrimination to punish a specific company." The California Coastal Commission continues to face growing backlash, as both Dana, a Capitol staffer, and aerospace consultant Miles Green highlighted their perspective. I can't say who, but I do know of others here in Sacramento who will be writing to the CC as well once elections are done with. Dana said, "I know Newsom did it, but many don't want to be seen supporting Musk publicly, even if it is just for SpaceX launches, until after the election. It's why you haven't seen other Democrats go after the CCC decision yet, and so many Republicans who have. And remember here, it's because why some of the commissioners said no to the launches. They made it personal. You cannot make decisions on a personal level. That's why lawyers and lawmakers recuse themselves from things they have a personal stake in, or are related to somebody there, or something like that." Aerospace consultant Miles Green added, "With the lawsuit, SpaceX can bring this back around. And all they have to show is that the SpaceX launches have military value. Rejections under that sort of basis are common enough, so you just bolster your next application or request. That decision making it personal was highly unusual, though. You can't get personal on decisions like that, and they did." These arguments were used against the statements of 2 California commissioners about Elon. Elon Musk is hopping about the country, spewing and tweeting political falsehoods and attacking FEMA, while claiming his desire to help the hurricane victims with free Starlink access to the internet. said Commissioner Gretchen Newsom, who is not related to Governor Gavin Newsom. It appears that rather than prioritizing the welfare of SpaceX employees and the environment, the focus has been on profit maximization. Since the former president, Donald Trump, defeated Kamala Harris as voters sent Republicans back to the White House for a second term, some people have been cheering and triumphant, including Elon Musk. Meanwhile, many have been breaking down over this fact. Perhaps the most fearful people at this point are a group of Democratic officials who have recently been on the opposite side of Elon Musk and have even used their power to hinder SpaceX's operations. I'm sure a name has come to your mind at present. It could be Michael Whitaker, FAA's administrator. This man grabbed the headlines in September by making several incorrect statements regarding SpaceX to defend the delay of SpaceX Starship's Flight 5. His agency, the FAA, is well known for its inability to keep pace with the commercial spaceflight industry, forcing SpaceX to voice its concerns for nearly 2 years. Both the FAA and NASA also used to set up barriers for the efforts to modernize commercial space regulations during Trump's first term. However, they may not get a chance to do that again because this time, the White House will push it even harder. Of course, the conservatives don't like this, and Whitaker will get even more worried as seeing Elon Musk, who always gets obsessed with cutting waste and reducing regulation, is selected to lead the newly created Department of Government Efficiency, along with the former Republican presidential candidate, Vivek Ramaswamy. Although the department will not be a government agency and Musk and Ramaswamy will work from outside, this enables Musk to oversee all of the federal agencies that his 6 companies are deeply entangled with, including the FAA. To put it simply, as Trump explained, the move would shock government systems. Besides the FAA and Michael Whitaker, there was also another group of people who were shaking just as much. You presumably remember these words of Commissioner Gretchen Newsom.
Right now, Elon Musk is hopping about the country, spewing and tweeting political falsehoods and attacking FEMA while claiming his desire to help the hurricane victims with free Starlink access to the internet.
Unlike the FAA, California officials blatantly cited Elon Musk's politics to make it difficult for SpaceX's plan to launch 50 rockets a year from Vandenberg Air Force Base in Santa Barbara County. The agency's commissioners, appointed by the governor and legislative leaders, voted 6-4 to reject the Air Force's plan over concerns that all SpaceX launches would be considered military activity, shielding the company from having to acquire its own permits, even if military payloads aren't being carried. Elon Musk then sued the California Commission in federal court. The U.S. Space Force, SpaceX's main customer in Vandenberg, was pretty inconsistent in this case. They previously agreed to all of the Commission's demands regarding environmental safeguards and monitoring at Vandenberg for the increased number of SpaceX launches. Among that is to set up an interagency working group that includes U.S. Fish and Wildlife, the National Marine Fisheries Service, and the Federal Aviation Administration to address concerns as the number of launches increases. This is obviously not good for SpaceX's operation in this place. But afterward, or nearly 3 weeks prior to the U.S. presidential election, they awarded SpaceX $733.6 million for the national security launches that would take place from Vandenberg, where the legal battle was happening. It appears to be a tacit acknowledgement of a protectionist move by the military toward SpaceX here. Simultaneously, Gavin Newsom, the Golden State governor, a Democrat who had previously many verbal fights with Elon on X, showed his supportive opinion of Elon Musk in the fight against the California Coastal Commission. "I'm with Elon, I didn't like that. Look, I'm not helping the legal case. You can't introduce that level of politics," Newsom said, signaling support for Musk's lawsuit. He criticized the commission for focusing on Musk's political activities instead of the permit's merits. So far, it's unclear how everything will end. We just know that after the win of Trump, the commission remained silent, and both the Space Force and Gavin Newsom may sigh of relief. One good news is SpaceX is now building 2 landing pads at California's Vandenberg Space Force Base for Falcon Heavy. One of them is the SLC-6 launch complex to enable launches as early as 2025, allowing up to 50 West Coast missions annually. The next year or so will be full of interesting movement at this pad. Well, at this point, we don't need to hear anything from the Commission to guess what's going on. SpaceX upgrading SLC-6 for 50 rocket launches annually manifests the company's glorious victory against the California Coastal Commission. So, how about you? Do you believe that in this case, SpaceX won? I would love to know your thoughts in the comments section below. Frankly, Vandenberg Space Force Base granted SpaceX permission to lease Space Launch Complex 6, SLC-6, for Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy launches on April 21, 2023. The agreement was signed by Colonel Rob Long, Space Launch Delta 30 Commander. SpaceX's purpose to take over this place is very clear. It's part of Space Launch Delta 30's launch pad allocation strategy, which evaluates the suitability of various launch sites for different types of rockets and payloads. This agreement is the first round of launch pad allocations, and additional rounds of allocations will occur in the future after further operational analysis. The process is critical to ensuring that launches are safe and that the selected launch site can accommodate the unique requirements of each mission. Geographically, Vandenberg offers an ideal location for launches because only this location can launch satellites to a polar orbit without launching over population centers, the eastern seaboard, or foreign countries, Cuba and South America. Launching from this place helps rockets save much more booster energy than launching from Cape Canaveral. Additionally, Vandenberg Space Force Base allows for launches in a southern trajectory over the Pacific Ocean, which is often used for weather monitoring, military, or spy satellites that commonly rely on polar Earth orbits. SpaceX can utilize the advantage of SLC-6 to launch national security launches for the Department of Defense and the National Reconnaissance Office. From a historical perspective, SLC-6 is considered one of the most iconic launch sites in the world, and it was formerly used by United Launch Alliance to launch the Delta IV rocket family from the West Coast, primarily for the National Reconnaissance Office. SLC-6 was initially built in 1966 to host the Titan III launch vehicle to launch the Manned Orbital Laboratory. The Manned Orbital Laboratory was subsequently canceled in 1969 before any launches occurred and work was paused. It wasn't until 1979 that work continued following SLC-6 being selected as one of the sites to host space shuttle launches for the U.S. Air Force. Construction on the pad for future space shuttle missions finished in 1986. However, the tragic accident that was the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster drastically changed the outlook for the Space Shuttle program and resulted in the cancellation of Space Shuttle launches from SLC-6. Additionally, by adding SLC-6 to its portfolio, SpaceX can significantly increase the number of launches it can perform annually. This is particularly important as the company aims for ambitious launch targets. SpaceX plans to start Falcon 9 launches from SLC-6 in 2025 and Falcon Heavy launches in 2026. Anyway, some people wonder how much SpaceX paid to lease SLC-6. According to a 2011 estimate, the cost of the first 24 months of construction and operation for the Vandenberg Space Force Base launch site was estimated to be between $20 and $30 million. After that, the operational costs were expected to be $5 to $10 million per year. SpaceX's grant of Space Launch Complex 6 comes as rocket companies prepare to compete for the Pentagon's Phase 3 National Security Space Launch Program, a watershed military launch procurement effort. In June, the U.S. Space Force selected Blue Origin, SpaceX, and ULA for the National Security Space Launch Phase 3 Launch Services Program. The three companies won contracts potentially worth $5.6 billion over 5 years. The three companies will compete for orders over the contract period starting in fiscal year 2025 through 2029. Under the NSSL program, the Space Force orders individual launch missions up to 2 years in advance. At least 30 NSSL Lane 1 missions are expected to be completed over the next 5 years. The Phase 3 contract is a big win for Blue Origin, marking the first time the space company founded by billionaire Jeff Bezos has been selected to launch sensitive national security satellites. SpaceX and ULA have had a lock on national security launch contracts under the Phase 2 program that began in 2020. Blue Origin did compete for the Phase 2 contract and unsuccessfully protested the decision. Blue Origin's New Glenn heavy lift reusable rocket, in development for nearly a decade, is undergoing testing and is projected to attempt its first orbital flight later this year. The NSSL Phase 3 program was structured into 2 lanes. Lane 1 is for less demanding launches to low Earth orbit, while Lane 2 is reserved for heavy-lift rockets capable of delivering payloads to 9 reference orbits, including some of the most demanding national security missions. The selection of Blue Origin, SpaceX, and ULA for Lane 1 contracts confirms that no other launch providers met the criteria. 7 bids were submitted, according to the DoD announcement. As part of the Phase 3 contract, Blue Origin will receive $5 million to conduct an initial capabilities assessment of its mission assurance. SpaceX and ULA will receive $1.5 million each, since they are incumbent Phase 2 providers. The Space Force earlier this year awarded Blue Origin nearly $18 million for NSSL Phase 3 early integration studies to assess the capabilities of the New Glenn rocket. The first task order opportunity in Phase 3 Lane 1 will be for 7 U.S. Space Force Space Development Agency launches and 1 for the National Reconnaissance Office. The Space Force said any launch provider on the base contract can bid for launch service task orders, provided they have completed a successful orbital launch prior to the proposal due date. The next opportunity for providers to on-ramp will be in the first quarter of fiscal year 2025. Potential new entrants include Rocket Lab, Relativity Space, and Firefly Aerospace, which are developing medium-lift rockets aimed at Lane 1 missions. And that just about wraps it up for today's episode. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you next time.